The Galactic Military Academy had never seen anything quite like General Krathzor. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton gleamed with the metals of 100 conquered worlds. His 4 eyes scanned the classroom with barely concealed contempt as he surveyed the mixed-species tactical strategy class. "Pathetic," he hissed, his translator rendering the word in perfect standard. 50 cycles of teaching and they send me this. The students, Valorians, Centauri, Prexians, and 1 human, sat in uncomfortable silence. General Krathzor was a legend, the architect of the siege of Terminus 7, the strategist who had broken the Endless Fleet. He was also notoriously cruel to students he deemed unworthy. His gaze settled on the back row where Sarah Chen sat with her datapad taking notes. She was small by human standards, barely 5'3", with dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Among the hulking aliens surrounding her, she looked insignificant. "You," Krathzor's mandibles clicked together. "The human, stand." Sarah rose slowly, meeting his eyes without flinching. Around her, classmates shifted nervously. Everyone knew about humanity's recent admission to the Galactic Council, a species barely past their own moon when first contact occurred, now granted provisional membership after only 2 centuries of spaceflight. "Tell me, human," the general's voice dripped with mockery. "What tactical advantage does your species bring to the Academy?" "The Valorians have strength. The Centauri have telepathic coordination. The Prexians have quantum probability calculation." He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across her desk. "What do humans have except fragile bodies and delusions of adequacy?" Several students laughed nervously. Sarah's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "Adaptability, sir, persistence, creative problem-solving under pressure." Krathzor's laugh was like grinding metal. "Pretty words. I've reviewed humanity's military history. Primitive chemical warfare. Nuclear weapons deployed against your own kind. Your species nearly destroyed itself before even achieving interstellar travel." He turned to address the entire class. "This is what desperation looks like, students. A species so volatile, so short-sighted, they consider self-destruction a viable strategy." "We survived," Sarah said quietly. The general spun back toward her. "What was that?" "We survived, sir." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "Every extinction event, every war, every catastrophe. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. We've been tested by our own world in ways most species never face. We earned our place here, earned." Krathzor's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "You were granted pity, a token seat at the table so the council could pretend to be inclusive." He moved closer, looming over her. "Your homeworld has gravity so weak, atmosphere so thin that you cannot survive 1 rotation on a proper warrior planet. You lack natural weapons, natural armor. You're barely apex predators on your own world." "Sir," one of the Valorian students began. "Silence!" The general's roar echoed through the chamber. He never broke eye contact with Sarah. "I've seen species like yours before, soft-worlders, weak bloods. You play at being soldiers, but when real conflict comes, you'll break. You'll run. You'll die." The classroom had gone deathly quiet. Sarah's hands were clenched at her sides, but she held her ground. "Would you like to test that theory, sir?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. Several students gasped. No one spoke to General Krathzor that way. The general's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" Sarah took a step forward, closing the distance between them despite the massive size difference. When she spoke, her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I said, try me." The lights in the classroom flickered, not from any electrical malfunction, but from the sudden spike in attention from every student present. The air itself seemed to thicken with tension. Krathzor studied her for a long moment, his mandibles clicking in what might have been surprise or amusement. "You challenge me? Here? Now?" "You questioned my species' right to be here," Sarah replied, her voice carrying despite its relative softness. "You called us weak, fragile, cowards. I'm offering you the chance to prove your point." She paused. Unless the legendary General Krathzor is afraid of a single human student. A collective intake of breath swept through the room. Calling the general afraid was more than bold, it was potentially career-ending. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Then slowly, impossibly, Krathzor began to laugh. Not the mocking sound from before, but genuine, deep laughter that rumbled through the floor. "Afraid of you?" He stepped back, gesturing to the training space at the center of the classroom. "Very well, human. You want to prove your worth? We'll settle this in the combat simulator. Right now. Full spectrum tactical scenario. Sarah nodded once. Agreed. As they moved to the simulator stations, the other students rushed to the observation deck. This was unprecedented. A student directly challenging General Krathzor to combat simulation. The scenario initialized: a hostile planet, limited resources, 3 objectives to capture while defending against overwhelming enemy forces. Standard impossible odds situation that the general used to break overconfident students. For the first 5 minutes, Krathzor executed a textbook perfect assault. His forces moved with precision. His strategies pulled from centuries of military doctrine. He was going to crush her, quickly and completely, to teach her humility. But Sarah didn't play by the textbook. She sacrificed positions he expected her to defend. She retreated from strongholds he thought she'd hold at all costs. She did things no properly trained military mind would consider. Illogical, desperate things that should have led to immediate defeat. Except they didn't. Every sacrifice was a feint. Every retreat was preparation for a counterattack. She used the terrain in ways the simulation designers never intended. Exploited glitches in enemy AI patterns. Turned her weakness into weapons. She fought like someone who had studied every losing battle in human history and learned exactly how to win. When her forces emerged victorious after 37 minutes of brutal combat, the classroom was silent. Sarah removed her neural interface and met the general's 4 eyes across the simulator bay. Humans don't just survive, General. We learn from every defeat, every mistake, every impossible situation. That's our advantage. Krathzor stood slowly, his expression unreadable. Then he did something no one had ever seen. He inclined his head in a gesture of respect. Perhaps, he said quietly, I judged too quickly. He turned to address the class. Let this be your lesson today. Never underestimate an opponent based on appearance. Never assume weakness means inability. His gaze returned to Sarah. The most dangerous warrior is not the strongest or the fastest. It's the one who refuses to accept defeat. As the class filed out afterward, several students approached Sarah with newfound respect, but she barely noticed, still processing the adrenaline coursing through her system. General Krathzor waited until the others had left before approaching her one final time. You took a significant risk today, human. Yes, sir. It could have ended your career before it began. Yes, sir. He studied her for another moment. Why? Sarah met his gaze steadily. Because someone needed to show you that humanity belongs here. Not out of pity, not as tokens, but as equals. Krathzor's mandibles clicked. This time it was definitely amusement. You remind me why I respect humans, Sarah Chen. Your species may be young, may be fragile, may lack our natural advantages. He turned toward the door. But you have something many ancient species have lost. The fire that comes from fighting for every breath, every victory, every moment of existence. As he reached the threshold, he paused. Same time next week, and bring that fire with you. You're going to need it. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Yes, sir. The classroom walls had indeed shaken that day, not from any physical force, but from the collision of assumption and reality, of prejudice and proof. And in that moment, one small human had reminded an entire galaxy why humanity had earned their seat at the table. Not through strength or size or ancient lineage, but through the sheer stubborn refusal to be underestimated.